Okay, so the word that's used for the contemplation, it's actually the perception of impermanence. So the word that we'll be looking at is anicca sanya. So we know the word anicca is what's usually translated as impermanence, though Venerable Tanisaro had used a different translation. He had used inconstancy, which I didn't quite agree with, because in regular sort of American, contemporary American English, when somebody is inconstant, generally it means that a partner in a love relationship is not faithful to their a person in a love relationship is not faithful to their partner. She's my partner has been inconstant. That means she's going with some other men. Okay, but almost the invariable translation is impermanence, and it's a negation of the word that means permanent. So the word that means permanent is nicca, and then the prefix a is the negation, so not permanent, anicca. And then we have the word sanya, which, as I explained several times already, is the common word for perception through the senses, with perceiving colors through the eye, perceiving sounds through the ear. But here it's being used in the sense of a theme for that it starts off as a theme for contemplation, which as it gets intensified becomes a direct inner perception of that particular subject. And one of the classical texts for the perception of impermanence is the Girimananda Sutta, which has 10 perceptions. And here the explanation comes. It's very simple, very succinct, very simple. Here it says that a monk, or it could be any practitioner, who's gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or an empty hut, though those are the ideal places, but wherever you are, you can do this contemplation. You reflect, and here it's done in terms of the five aggregates. That material form is impermanent. So with feeling, perception, material form, feeling, perception, the volitional activities, the sankharas, and consciousness. And so one dwells contemplating impermanence in these five aggregates. So that's the perception of impermanence, but it's not necessarily the case that one is using the five aggregates themselves as the base for contemplation of impermanence, since some other suttas here in the Samyutta Nikaya explain
Record progress.
some other suttas here in the Samyutta Nikaya explain impermanence by way of the 12 sense bases. Here, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So these are the six internal sense bases, and their objects, visible forms, sounds, odors, tastes, textures, and the mental phenomena are impermanent. So here one is doing the contemplation or perception of impermanence by way of the 12 sense bases. And then some of the benefits of practicing or gaining the perception of impermanence. This is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, which speaks about an ascending scale of things that are said to be fruitful or beneficial. And it describes a great offering of alms that was made by some Brahmin in the ancient past. The Brahmin is named Velama. So the text says that even more fruitful than that great alms offering that this Brahmin made when he made the offering to the Buddha at the head of the Sangha, and he built a monastery that he dedicated to the Sangha. And more fruitful than that is going for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And even more fruitful than that, after going for refuge, is taking the five precepts. And then more fruitful than that, after you have taken the five precepts, is developing a mind of loving kindness, even for the time it takes to pull the udder of a cow. And then even more fruitful than developing the mind of loving kindness is developing the perception of impermanence just for the time of a finger snap. And so we might be very excited, wow, we're going to be getting so much merit or doing such fruitful practice this afternoon. But here the commentary explains that what is meant by the perception of impermanence in this case is strong insight that has reached the peak of its development and that is the immediate condition for the arising of the world transcending path, that is the path of stream entry. So that is the highest level in the development of the perception of impermanence. And then there's another sutta that speaks about the benefit in the developing the perception of impermanence. So it says that when the perception of impermanence is developed and cultivated, it eliminates all sensual lust, all lust for material form, all lust for continued existence in samsara. It eliminates all ignorance, and it demolishes the conceit, I am. So again, this is referring to the perception of impermanence at a very high level of development. Okay, just another sutta on the perception of impermanence, or here is the contemplation of impermanence. So some person dwells contemplating impermanence in all conditioned phenomena, and then perceiving impermanence and experiencing impermanence constantly, continuously, uninterruptedly, with the mind focused on it and penetrating it with wisdom. And when one reaches that level of development, here the text says that one destroys the asavas, the taints, and in this very life one achieves the taintless liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom. So again, that is the contemplation of impermanence at the highest level. But we shouldn't be sort of deterred by that, thinking, wow, we don't have that capacity. Because it's like a person, let us say a person who writes a novel, right? So it's a high developed, maybe a, do they give the Pulitzer Prize for novels? Well, let's say he writes a Pulitzer Prize winning piece of literature. A person who wins the Nobel Prize for literature. Okay, so that person who maybe wrote so many books that was appreciated by so many people, but they started out as children learning the ABCs. And then after learning the ABCs, maybe in first grade, then they went on through elementary school, then junior high school, learning to read great classics of American literature, English literature. Then maybe they went to college and majored in literature. And then after finishing college, they wrote the first novel, which maybe was rejected by several publishers till finally they found the publisher. Then first novel was a moderate success, but they went on writing and writing until they're writing novels that become recognized as classics of American literature or English literature. And so we are in that same position now. We're going to be practicing the ABC in the perception of impermanence. But maybe there are some people here on this Zoom call who already have very mature faculties. So if you immediately start to practice according to the instructions that I'll be giving, you might advance very rapidly. Like this could be like the person who just starts to learn a little bit to do a little literature. And maybe at the age of 14, he writes his first novel. And then he becomes quite a successful novelist at the age of 16. Like the French poet Arthur Rimbaud, I think he wrote all of his poetry between the ages of like 16 and 21. And he's regarded as one of the greatest poets of, of, of French poetry of the 19th century. Okay, so how do we go about developing the perception of impermanence? So we're going to base ourselves on the statement that occurs, this is in the Anguttara Nikaya, that there are three characteristics of conditioned phenomena. And so this is the way we see impermanence. So an arising is seen, a vanishing is seen, and the alteration of that thing, that phenomena, while it persists, is seen. In other words, any phenomena, any conditioned phenomena has these three characteristics. It comes into existence, it lasts for some time, but while it lasts, it's undergoing change, it's undergoing alteration, and then it vanishes. That is, it ceases to exist. And so let us take, okay, anything as an example. Okay, here's a notebook. Okay, so it's sometime in the past, this notebook was produced, right? And now it's being used. And as it's being used, so when it was produced, we have the cardboard, paper, binding all put together, and then it comes off the production line. And so that is the arising of the notebook. Now it's being used, and I'm putting notes into it. And as I'm putting notes into it, it's undergoing change. And then when it's completely filled up, then I'll put it away someplace. And maybe it will continue to exist for some years. And then it will eventually, at some point, it will vanish, it will be destroyed, even if it gets put into a museum, memorial museum for the things that Bhikkhu Bodhi used. Eventually, sometime it will be thought it's useless, throw it away, and then it vanishes. So that's something with a relative degree of stability. And even things with great stability, this Earth, this planet Earth, has come into existence at some time. Was it 5 billion years ago, 3 billion years ago? I think longer, I think 13 billion years ago. I don't remember exactly. But after it comes into existence, it's constantly undergoing change, even through all of changes in the weather every day. It's undergoing change. The climate is changing all the time. Even before we had this human-driven climate change. And at some point in the future, as long as the Earth lasts, the sun is going to get hotter and hotter, it's going to explode, and the Earth will be destroyed. So that is impermanence at the coarse level. But we can see impermanence at every level. We could take something, okay, take the human body. The human body comes into being at the moment of, even the moment of conception. It develops, constantly changes, grows and changes, and it's always undergoing alteration. Then at a certain point, we say the life force is extinguished, we die, the body still exists, but then the body disintegrates and maybe it's cremated. Then we say the body is destroyed. That's the vanishing of the body. But every organ in the body is undergoing change. And even the cells of the body, they say that I think all of the cells of the body are replaced, is it every 7 years, something like that? So the cells come into existence, they arise, they're constantly absorbing new materials, refurbishing their protoplasm from day to day, even from moment to moment. And then at some point the cells die and then they're replaced by other cells. So these are ways we can see impermanence at a relatively coarse level. But now in developing the contemplation of impermanence, the way we're going to do it initially is through the observance of the breath. We're going to observe impermanence in the breath. And here we find this included in the formulation, the Buddha's formulation of the sequential development of mindfulness of breathing. So he's speaking about the practitioner. He says, he trains us contemplating impermanence, I will breathe in. Contemplating impermanence, I will breathe out. Contemplating fading away. Contemplating cessation, I will breathe in, I will breathe out. And so, how do we go about contemplating impermanence in the breath? At a very elementary level, usually when I explain doing mindfulness of breathing, I say that we should try to be as mindful of the entire breath throughout its entire duration, its entire in breath, the entire out breath, trying to observe it as continuously, as consistently as possible. So that is a way of practicing mindfulness of breathing aimed at increasing samadhi, increasing the calming of the breath, was samatha. But now, to get some sort of baby steps into impermanence, what we're going to be doing is observing the breath by way of three phases in breath and the same three phases in the out breath. So, what are the three phases? Beginning, so with the in breath, the beginning, then the middle, and the end. So, the beginning of the in breath is the arising, and the ending of the in breath is the vanishing. Then with the out breath, the beginning is the arising, and the ending is the vanishing. At this point, we won't be paying attention to the alteration of what persists, but initially you just focus on arising, then just follow the duration of the breath to the ending of that particular stage. So in breath, arising, duration, then ending is the vanishing. Then with the out breath, the beginning is the arising, follow the duration, the ending is the vanishing. And you pay particular attention of the two, arising and vanishing. which is the one that you pay particular attention to get the perception of impermanence? That's a quiz question. You could unmute to answer.
The vanishing.
Exactly, the vanishing. So you put like a special emphasis on vanishing or the ending. Okay, so we can start. So you can take your sitting position, and I'll do a little bit of guidance at the beginning and then just let you do on your own. Okay, so take your congenial sitting position. Okay, and then begin by settling in to the felt sense of the body. Okay, then you can move your mindfulness to your preferred post of observation, the place where you usually observe the in and out breathing. And first we begin simply by paying attention to the breath as consistently as possible without making the differentiation, the distinctions, but just following continuously the in-breath and out-breath. Okay, now you can move from the undifferentiated observation of the breath to the differentiated observation. That is, with the in-breath, you make the distinct note of the beginning of the breath, and then you follow the duration of the breath and its duration, and then you note distinctly the ending of the in-breath. And then similarly with the out-breath, you note the beginning of the out breath, follow its duration, and then you note distinctly with special emphasis the ending of the out breath. So each in breath, 3 phases, beginning, duration, end. Each out breath, beginning, duration, end. Okay, so again, just to repeat, so with each step, you start off in your starting point of the walkway. Then we use the letters P. It's convenient for the 3 phases. So the beginning of the step is the phase of picking the foot up. We call that picking. Then moving the foot forward is pushing. And then putting the foot down is, and placing it on the, is, or putting the foot down is placing. And so that corresponds to the 3 phases of all conditioned phenomena. Picking the foot up, that's the arising of the step. Pushing the foot forward, that is the alteration of what persists, since as you're pushing the foot forward, the step is always changing. Now I pick the foot up, let's pick the foot up, pushing it forward, but there's always little changes taking place. Then I put the foot down, I place it on the floor. That is the end of the step. And so we do this with each step, right step, left step, again, till you get to the end of the walkway. And that will be the ending of that particular stretch of walking. Then you pause for the moment, turn around mindfully, turning, turning, turning. Then you're facing back to the starting point, and then you begin to walk in the other direction. And again, you do this very slowly. So picking, pushing, placing. And it's probably best to wait until you've actually shifted the weight on one foot before you start the next step. Okay, any questions about this, about the walking process? Is that Samangi?
Yes, Bhante,
Yeah.
thank you. So if when you are doing the picking, pushing, ending, would I'm wondering whether that would make us put our foot in a certain way. So it's not so much mind following foot, foot following mind in some sense. Whether our walking pattern will change with our thinking rather than the mind following the walking.
You just with the mind, you follow the walking.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't be too concerned about any of these theoretical questions, but you just take each step mindfully, observing these 3 phases of picking, pushing, placing. And you can be, in fact, you should be making the mental notes while you're taking the step. When you're picking, you're making the mental note picking, picking, or picking. Yeah, just keep it simple. Picking, picking, then pushing, pushing, placing, placing. And then when you take the next step, again, is picking, pushing, placing. And so this way you're breaking each step up into the 3 phases, and it's bringing out the impermanence within each step. Okay, so let us then move over to our walkways, and we'll do this about 25 minutes till 3:30. Then we'll come back, and then I'll show you the next stage in doing the mindful breathing. Okay, so now we'll have another period of the mindfulness of breathing, focusing on impermanence through mindfulness of breathing. But now I'm going to introduce another phase in finding impermanence in the breath. So in the first session, I emphasized that you attend to the beginning of the breath as the arising, and then you just follow the duration of the breath, and then you especially focus on the ending of the breath as the vanishing. So the arising, duration, vanishing. But you remember that that little sutta on the three characteristics of the conditioned says the arising is seen, the vanishing is seen, and the alteration or change of that which persists is seen. So now in this session, we're going to be observing not only the arising or the beginning of the breath and the end of the breath, but as you're following the duration, that is the continuation of the breath, look for the little changes that take place. You'll see that there are little changes in sort of the speed at which the breath is taking place. What I notice is that it's not just like a continuous process, but it's a little bit like the New York City subway train. A New York City subway train. It goes like this. So there are like little discontinuous moments within the breath. So look for those little changes in the pressure, the speed of the breath. So look for those little changes, and those would be the alteration in that which is continuing. And that alteration is also an indication of impermanence. Okay, so it doesn't need much explanation. Maybe any questions about this short, simple, practical question? Okay, Jie Huang.
Thank you, Bhante, for teaching. I have a question on the breath. How do I treat, you actually segregate each in-breath as a unit,
Yeah.
beginning, alteration, and end. Could I actually use the in-breath as a beginning and out-breath as the ending? So I sometime in between, I tend to hold the breath. So
No,
holding can be alteration.
yeah, no, don't hold the breath. Don't hold the breath. Just let the breath go naturally.
So treat the in-breath as a one unit, rising, alteration, and ending.
Yeah, yeah. And then with the out breath, the same. The beginning of the out breath is the arising, and the duration of it. In the duration, you're looking for the little changes in speed and pressure of the breath. So that's the alteration or change. And then the end of each in breath, each out breath, that is the vanishing. That is the real distinctive mark of impermanence.
Thank you for confirming. Because my breaths tend to be shallow, so I couldn't hold that long, but it's just a quick, how to actually make, should I slow my in-breath down for me to observe on the alteration part?
No, don't control the breath in any way. Just breathe in your natural way.
Okay.
Yeah, there has to be a period. I mean, there's a period certainly between when you start to breathe in
Right.
and when you come to the end of the in breath, when the breath is undergoing changes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and then whatever changes are there, you just note.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we should do it. Samangi, you had a question? I don't know whether.
Yeah, Bhante, the previous question is actually something similar to what I was trying to ask.
Yeah.
I found myself making almost making it breathing exercises that rather than my mind following the breathing.
No,
I know
don't.
it's wrong. So how do you prevent that from happening? Subconsciously, my observation made my breath slower than what I think what it usually
Yeah,
is.
it's natural that when you're observing the breath, that the breath will slow down. You don't have to be worry about that. It's just that you don't make a conscious attempt to regulate the breath.
Okay.
Like it's
Okay.
not like the pranayama in yoga where you do maybe I think it's 8 seconds the in breath, hold it for 8 seconds, and 16 seconds the out breath. No, it's not like that. You're just breathing in your natural way. But naturally, as you're observing the breath will slow down.
Okay.
Okay, I think we should just plunge into the water, so to speak. And any questions that come up, then you can ask them at the beginning of the evening session. Okay, now you can let go of the intensive focus on the breath and just bring the mindfulness to the whole body in the sitting position. And then you can take a couple of deep mindful breaths, not with a narrow focus, but just sort of relaxed in and out breathing a couple of times. In and out, in and out, in and out. And then we'll end the session the usual way by rubbing the palms to create some warmth. And then taking the warm palms and rubbing them over the face. Then down the back of the neck and the shoulder blades. And then coming down the lower back and the buttocks, the knees. And then if you've been sitting cross-legged on a mat, then you come down to the feet and the toes. Okay, so that will do for our afternoon session. Then we'll have another session in the evening from 7 to 8 p.m. And we'll start that session with a period for questions. So if you have any questions that come up from this session or any other questions about practice, not confined to this particular subject, but not theoretical questions. We won't deal with theoretical issues. And then so we'll have a period for questions. Then we'll do another stage in the developing this is sort of accelerated process in developing the perception of impermanence. And then by 8 p.m., we should all have eliminated all of our asavas and be able to declare the attainment of arhatship. Okay. I'm only joking.
Wishful thinking, Bhante, no chance.
Yeah, but we're moving on. Sort of, we started with the ABCs of perception of impermanence, simply beginning and end of the breath, then beginning, intermediate changes, and the end. So that's like going into maybe 6th grade or junior high school, and the afternoon we'll go into high school. In the evening we'll go to high school, not yet college or graduate school. Okay. Okay, so thank you for joining and hope to see you at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Please
Thank you,
don't-
Namo
Bhante.
Buddhaya, Thiruvan
Thank you,
Sarnam.
That's 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Good to see you again, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Very good, Bhante. Thiruvan Sarnam.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay,
Thank you,
don't
Bhante.
we changed the clocks tonight, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to get up at 2 a.m. and then change the clock.
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
Okay, Bhante.
So this evening we're still on the old time, the winter time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. So see you.
Thank you, Bhante.
We'll see you at 7
Thank you,
p.m.
Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank you,
Everyone's
Bhante.
online.
Okay.
Have a good rest, Bhante.
Okay. Thank you.
Bhante.